Every time I set up to film, I'm blocking Joanna, and I feel like I want her included in the party. So here's Joanna. I don't know what's in the water right now, but romance is having a moment, and I need that moment to keep going. Hi, I'm Lady Genevieve, and if you've been following along with my other Bridgerton coverage, which I have been posting since the press embargo lifted, you know that I had been saying I would be posting more videos in which I could freely talk about spoilers, and I'm going to start doing that today. But before we get into Bridgerton Season 2, I wanted to first quickly mention that I saw The Lost City, the new adventure rom-com starring Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum. It's opening weekend, so I don't want to spoil any of the details, but trust me when I say all of you need to go watch it. I was smiling, giggling, and full-on laughing non-stop from start to finish as someone who loves Miss Congeniality and She's the Man and The Wedding Date. This movie felt like it was made specifically for me. If you're wondering why I'm plugging The Wedding Date, I'm not going to spoil the specifics, but there was something that happened in The Lost City that immediately made me think of The Wedding Date. And then we finished the movie, roll credits, and what do I see? Dana Fox's name listed in the screenwriting credits. My jaw dropped, genuinely dropped, because Dana Fox was the screenwriter for The Wedding Date. So when I say this movie was made for me, I mean it. The only way it could have been even more tailor-made for me if Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum had in a boat to Maroon 5's Secret.
I'm for that. I'm all for that.
All right, girl.
Anyway, I wanted to give it a little shout out, a little plug, because I want more people to see it. I want rom-coms to start running the industry again, because I miss them. I am sick of rom-droms that are falsely marketed as rom-coms. Don't lie to me. I want romance and wacky shenanigans merged together. That is what a rom-com is. Also, it was a joy to see Divine Joy Randolph landing a gig like this, because Selfie was one of the best sitcoms, and it was a rom-com sitcom, and whomever played any role in it being canceled is my enemy. Now, on to Bridgerton Season 2. I have a couple of video topics I want to do that focus in on certain storylines that span the full season, but I wanted to first come on and share a few miscellaneous points of feedback that are not long enough to warrant their own video. When I posted my spoiler-free review videos, the main point of criticism I had was about the Featherington family subplot. That does not include Penelope. I was specifically referring to the subplot involving Penelope's mother and Jack Featherington. As a matter of fact, Jack Featherington was someone that was not supposed to be discussed in any of the coverage being released pre-premiere, so if any of you saw any reviews talking about him, just know that those people were violating Netflix's rules. I still don't particularly care for this subplot, and it really just dragged on for far too long for my liking, but I did appreciate the way that it gave us an opportunity to see Will and Alice Mondrich again. They are more compelling to watch, and I like them, and I was more so curious about that material and that journey of trying to work their way up, because Will had to do something that was morally gray in order for them to be able to prosper, as is customary in a capitalist society. That was just a more subtextually rich storyline, and it wasn't even really its own storyline in this season. It was more of a subplot within a subplot. Bridgerton is complicated in the sense that there are so many characters and stories to choose from that on the one hand, you have a lot to work with, but you can also very easily fall into this trap of putting too much time and energy into what I personally feel was not the best option of what was available. But to be fair to this subplot, I did like that it not only brought back the Mondriches into the fold, even if Simon wasn't around this season, but it also brought an opportunity for Colin to have some actual character growth. He had to use his brain. What a revolutionary concept for Colin, You're My Friend Bridgerton. And in particular, that scene where he went back to Will's establishment and apologized to him for snapping at him, even if it had only been a ruse to maintain a cover so he could figure out what was really going on. Him taking the time to apologize demonstrated a level of intelligence and emotional maturity that I did not know Colin Bridgerton had in him. Where I really take issue though, as someone who did not care for this Featherington family subplot is that if bringing the Mondriches back or showing the fact that Colin is maturing as a priority, I don't think you needed to give the Featheringtons that much airtime in order to do either of those two things. You could have just as easily kept the focus on Will and Alice trying to get their establishment off the ground and have Jack Featherington be a shady character, but reframe the focus of that subplot and redistribute the airtime so that the characters we spent more time with would have been the more interesting ones. As it stands now, my personal preference would have been to scrap a considerable amount of the Featherington family subplot and redistribute it to other subplots that I found to be more interesting and compelling and entertaining to watch. Perhaps you could have done some flashbacks of Kate's birth parents, have a longer epilogue, for purely self-indulgent reasons, of course. More material for Mary. Actually, I would have really liked to have seen more one-on-one conversations between Violet and Mary. I feel like we could have had some really sweet, insightful dialogue between them because of their shared experiences as really loving mothers and also women who have lost husbands that they were deeply in love with. The next thing I wanted to touch on was the dramatic arc, and in particular the conclusion of that seasonal arc between Eloise and Penelope. I really enjoyed the way this storyline gave more room for Eloise to develop as a character and to simultaneously explore the world and explore her own identity. It brings something fresh to the viewing experience when you have this main storyline, the A-plot of this epic romance. You don't want every other plot to be a poor imitation of that same concept. I like that we get subplots like these which bring intrigue and a broader array of socio-political commentary. But I also just really liked her and Theo. He was cute and she was cute and they were cute together. I would love to see more working class characters brought into the fold, because even though I get that Bridgerton's main purpose is to sell romance, which it definitely delivered this season, in general, I'm also very cognizant of my complicated feelings about the way most of the characters in this series are in a much higher socioeconomic status. But getting back to Eloise and Penelope, I really loved the cat and mouse dynamic they had this season of Eloise tracking down leads and Penelope trying to evade her efforts to catch her. But of course, it all came to a head during the final episode when Eloise finally figured out that Penelope is Lady Whistledown. Before that, I didn't necessarily assume that she would be figuring that out this season. I could have just as easily speculated that they were building up to that for a confrontation or discovery to happen perhaps in season 3. But then Penelope opened her mouth and Eloise figured it out, and then they had that fight. Listen, I know I said before that I was mixed on Penelope and I was waiting to see how they play out her ongoing character development leading up to the love story that she will have with Colin. And in that regard, I still agree. But since I have now rewatched the episodes multiple times, and in particular certain scenes that I really liked, including this one, I've actually warmed even more to the Penelope and Eloise story for season 2, because that final scene of them, that fight, it was giving me everything. It was giving me drama. It was giving me emotional impact. Think about it like this. If you watch reality television, who are the best characters? The ones who bring the drama. How did Eloise and Penelope have more of an emotional impact in one scene than Penelope and Colin have ever had with each other in 2 entire seasons? Oh. Pollen shippers, do not come for me. I am here for their ride. I am ready to see their romance whenever it happens. I will support their coupling once the writers decide to actually do something to make me care about that storyline on the show. But yes, the Eloise and Penelope fight, that's one of my favorite scenes of the entire season for both of their characters. I know that when you first watch it, you're really in there with them in a way that you might feel upset because you don't like that Penelope betrayed Eloise, or if you're really married to the source material, you're naturally going to be upset that the show is doing its own interpretation of what different characters are doing, and perhaps it's something that you don't personally like. I myself have not read the books. I only read book 2 after I watched the press screeners for season 2. I am here for entertainment. I am not picky about how close or not of an adaptation the seasons have done or will do. I just want to have a fun time watching, and whatever you have to do to get me there, I'm on board. After seeing Eloise and Penelope's falling out, now I'm intrigued. I want to see what these two will do away from each other. Will this have an impact on Penelope's approach to writing her tabloid? What will Eloise do at all these balls without Penelope to go run off with? I think these two really relied on each other as friends, which on the one hand is a good thing, but if they were also relying on each other as more of a crutch and it's stunting their social growth, maybe they will be able to grow in unexpected ways while they are separated from one another. And I'm fine with them making amends and repairing their friendship eventually, but I'm just intrigued by the possibilities of what could come next for them based on this rift in their relationship. Also, again, I'll just reiterate it, even though I've said it multiple times. I love this scene of them fighting.
I ended my friendship with Theo because of you!
Of course, the star of this season was the Kate and Anthony romance, and it should surprise no one that I will be doing at least one entire video dedicated to their relationship. But since this is a video review compiling miscellaneous points of feedback, I do want to talk about something that I noticed when watching season 2 for the first time. I saw something and I went, no, surely I cannot be seeing what I think I'm seeing right now. There are two main love scenes between Kate and Anthony. One is in episode 7 and the other is in episode 8. I watched the one in episode 7 and felt like, finally, after all that emotional edging, we made it, it's here. And then we got to episode 8 and we got to see them happy and married, just full of bliss, enjoying that honeymoon glow. The two people who have been depriving themselves of happiness and romantic love for so long now have it with each other. But we open on their love scene in episode 8 and there was a very specific shot and I went,
what the fuck is going on in here on this day?
why does this shot look so familiar? We've seen this before. So I went back to episode 7 and went, so help me, if you recycled footage from their honeymoon and just inserted...
You're terrible. You got your minds in the gutter when you used to have your minds on the competition.
And just inserted it into their first love scene. And sure enough, it's the same shot, just mirrored. I don't know if it's the exact same take because I'll probably do a closer inspection when I'm editing this video. But even if it's not the exact same take, it was clearly filmed from the same filming session of them inside on their honeymoon. And the fact that this was not the only editing issue I found with that scene in episode 8, there's a point where Kate is talking, except her mouth isn't moving in a way that matches the dialogue. Her mouth is on his mouth. Specifically, it's when she says, before they realize we are ignoring them. I'm going to show you the footage, but I'm going to have to do some very close cropping so this video doesn't get yellow money signed.
Is meeting your family outside before they realize we are ignoring them.
Did you see it? Okay, well then let me show it one more time and I will slow down the speed a bit.
Is meeting your family outside before they realize we are ignoring them.
How exactly did you think this was a good idea? I understand it's a lot of work to make a film or a television series. It's a lot of hours of labor, more than the general masses will ever understand. But typically for ADR, you want to either re-record the audio because there was some sort of issue with the audio that was recorded on that day, so you match it to whatever is coming out of their mouth, or you can be more sneaky about putting it in because the character either isn't shown when they're saying the line you're dubbing, or you can see the back of their head, or you just see them at an angle, so the only thing you can see is a bit of their jaw moving. And the people who are more so into the technical aspects of filmmaking will probably most likely clock it when the jaw movement doesn't match the audio. But for you to try to just slip in audio when we have a close-up of two people's faces, and those faces are the focal point of the scene, and you're slipping in ADR, how can you expect me to not notice, even if I wasn't someone who looks closely at the media I watch? I'm hoping and expecting Kate and Anthony will be back in season 3, and if they have any more love scenes, please don't recycle footage for them or do weirdly edited ADR when we have a close-up on their mouths. Because these two are iconic and I want to see more of them. They're still now one of my top tier couples. Jonathan and Simone threw it down all season. Just do more takes. Check the footage on the day. I'm assuming you're filming on digital. If it turns out you're filming on film, then wow, Netflix is really giving you a budget. I love the look of film, by the way, but actually, side note, if you were to tell me that the show was being filmed on film, I would have actually said, can we switch to digital and use the money that you save in your budget by making that switch and expand the season to 10 episodes instead of 8? But I'm just assuming that they're not shooting on film, so this point is probably irrelevant. Anyway, moving on to the next detail, I do want to talk more about Edwina's material in a separate video, so stay tuned for when I will be addressing that. But one part of her story that I wanted to mention now is the part at the end of season 1 where Queen Charlotte says to her,
"Have I yet told you about my nephew? He is a prince, and he is available."
When I tell you, I have been waiting for the episodes to drop because I wanted to talk about this. The instant Queen Charlotte said that line, my head exploded. If you've seen my other videos that I posted pre-premiere, you will know that I watched season 1 right before watching my season 2 press screeners. So even though Prince Friedrich didn't do that much in season 1, I still had a very fresh impression of him in my mind when watching season 2 for the first time. What really stood out to me in recalling him was that although he and Daphne had their brief courtship and he was preparing to propose to her, and I didn't think he had shown that much personality yet because a lot of the details had been left out, but when Daphne had her abrupt engagement to Simon announced and she and the prince met one last time, it really stood out to me that he was incredibly respectful about their courtship ending in the way that it did. He wasn't mad or offended, there was no fragile male ego or a hot-tempered entitlement the way you might expect to see in other more archaic styles of romance stories. So they didn't burn the bridge on his character where he is painted out to be a bad person and you don't want him to be with any of the women characters that you're rooting for. They can bring him back and they can do an Edwina Friedrich romance. And we could all be more invested in it because Edwina will be a little bit older, a bit wiser, more knowledgeable about the world, about life, and about what she wants for herself. I don't believe that she ever actually loved Antony. I know she said that, but the way that she said it, it read to me as a person who is over the age of 12 who doesn't take every line of dialogue literally, and I will read into the subtext. I think Edwina just found him to be attractive and appealing and agreeable, but there was never any fire. I think that's just that very naive first love where you think you're in love, but you're not really.
I think they look beautiful together.
And now that Edwina will have seen her older sister fall in love and have this coupling be one that is so epic and deeply passionate, Edwina is not going to settle for some mediocre flat marriage. I don't believe that for a second. And if I switch over to petty mode, imagine how much it's going to burn the Sheffields to find out that they will now have zero relationship with this part of their family because they were awful to these women. And now their granddaughters are getting married to a viscount and to a prince. Oh, it's going to eat them up inside, and that's what you get for being awful people.
I'm supposed to feel sorry for that bitch. I don't.
And before any of you tried to come at me with the Cathani isn't related to the Sheffields argument, good grandparents would have embraced her as their own just the same way that Mary adopted her as her daughter. That's what family does. I want to see this Edwina Friedrich romance. I don't know if we would be able to bring that into the mix in season 3 or perhaps wait till season 4. I don't know what that actor's schedule is like, if it's open and if he's available to be brought back, but I would have to bet that if they bothered to put this line into the season 2 finale, that they would have called the actor up and at least had a conversation. With all the months of planning that goes into making these shows, months of production, post-production, if I was the betting type, I would put money on them having already called him, going, "Hey, Freddie, you busy?"
He wants to marry me.
I know he's been working on Peacemaker lately, but it looked like that only has 8 episodes per season, so it wouldn't be as much of a time crunch as if he was trapped on one of those 20-something episodes per season series that films for at least 9 months out of the year. I think the scheduling could be tight, but I don't think that it's impossible to make it work. Let's see it. I'm waiting. Because you know what's better than an epic romance playing out next season? 2 epic romances playing out next season, or season 4, whichever they prefer. That leaves one last thing I would like to address in this video. the underrated MVP of this season, the biggest grower in my personal esteem from season 1 to season 2, besides Anthony, of course, but that was to be expected since he was in the main romance of season 2. Benedict Bridgerton, the light of my life. Here's the thing about Benedict. To me, he comes across as someone that is used to being the second fiddle. He's the second oldest. A lot of the attention and responsibilities have been placed on Anthony, so Benedict has been left to wander and try to make his own path, but there isn't a lot of pressure put on him to make decisions as quickly as Anthony might. He's artistic, and much to my delight, he is so funny, as in consistently ridiculously funny, and I feel bad that I did not notice him enough sooner. I feel like you've been here all this time and it's taken me until now to really appreciate you the way that you deserve. When I watched season 2 for the first time, it's probably not surprising that one of the things that stood out the most for Benedict was him sipping on that tea. Relatable, except he wasn't sipping it, he was guzzling hallucinogenic tea and just being so cute. But there are a couple of other moments I want to put a spotlight on that were so underrated. One is when Kate and Anthony are bickering again because Edwina is trying to get Anthony to take Kate along on their hunting excursion, and Anthony is getting all skeptical about Kate's ability to shoot, blah blah blah, and Kate is putting him in his place. And what is Benedict doing the whole time? The funniest, messiest reactions.
Ladies do not hunt.
Do not or are not allowed to.
I am certain Lady Danbury can spare a maid.
If you saw my other videos, you know that I said it was hard to see anything else in this season besides Kate and Anthony. This scene, this whole situation is a prime example of that. When I first watched season 2, I completely missed that Benedict was doing this because I was laser focused on Kate and Anthony. They had me by the face and would not let me look away from anything and everything that they were serving. But like I said, I've rewatched this season multiple times. Maybe I skipped over certain scenes, but a scene like this with Kate and Anthony, I've already seen this multiple times. And when I finally noticed what Benedict was doing, I was laughing so much. Luke Thompson, sweetie, I am so sorry that I have been sleeping on you for far too long, but I see you now. Is it true that this man speaks French? Are we going to get Benedict wooing his love interest with poetry and art and jokes and French? I'm going to suffer from heat stroke. Benedict is trying to take me out. French? What's he going to say to her? Tu viens le soir? Stop it. Shut your mouth. Luke Thompson has been bringing us comedy excellence, and we have not thanked him nearly enough for it.
Who knows? Perhaps Miss Sharma can teach you a thing or two.
Now let's skip to the wedding scene, which has been highly discussed, unsurprisingly. I knew that it would be. But did anyone else clock Benedict in the background?
To satisfy men's carnal lusts and appetites, like brute beasts that have...
What is he doing? This man is a menace. Je suis dépassé. I'm going to throw my phone. Ce que tu fais, c'est déplacé. Not me quoting song lyrics to emphasize that Benedict Bridgerton is the unsung hero of this series. Like when he was so rudely interrupted by Anthony. And what does he do? He just off the cuff starts reciting beautiful poetry.
Deceitful. Poetry's the opposite, brother, is the art of revealing precious truth with words.
Are you trying to give me heart palpitations? This man is too much. Season 3 had better be Benedict's season. I want to see this man in love. I want to see him just ridiculously in love and doing whatever it takes to impress this woman from the books that I know nothing about, and I don't want to know. Don't tell me. I just want to watch season 3 knowing as little as possible as I go on the adventure of Benedict Bridgerton falling in love. I'm going to stop things there for now, but like I said, I do have more Bridgerton videos planned. Also, Morbius is coming out this week, and I will probably be doing a quick review of that because I have been wanting to see it and review it. It was supposed to come back in January, which is when I thought I would be doing this, and then the release got delayed. I just wanted to mention that because if I have not posted my next Bridgerton video before then and you see me posting a Morbius review, I don't want you thinking that I've canceled my Bridgerton videos. They are coming. It just means that I'm still working on the next video. If you liked this video, don't forget to like this video, and everyone make sure that you go see The Lost City. Support the rom-com revival that I have been waiting for. I want the genre back as a powerhouse in the industry instead of all these propaganda action movies.
Well, just as a thought, trash.
Subscribe because I'm getting really close to hitting 12K subscribers, and maybe if my channel can get to be just big enough in time for season 3, I could try to get myself onto the press junket and bring all of you some fun interviews with the cast and crew. If you're new here and you don't know how hard I will work if you let me do an interview that I've been dying to do, you're in for it if I ever get on that junket. For example, I interviewed George Chakiris, original Bernardo from West Side Story 1961. He's on my wall, and I did so much research and prep for that. It was a whole lot of a whole lot. See you in the next one. Bye.